Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Life Reset Collective. My name is Josh, and it's been a while since I've published a video on this channel, but I thought I would give an update and talk a little bit about how different chapters and moving to different chapters can feel like it takes a long time. And this has definitely been a theme in my journey, though I will say, looking back on it, progress has been surprisingly fast, I guess. And that's also a theme that I tend to notice. So just a little recap. Back in 2025, in the spring of 2025, I began the process of divorce in my life. My marriage was coming to an end, and I realized that I was going to be entering a pretty tough season. And boy, did it turn out to be a very tough season. I ended up needing to basically move in with my family during the transition. My house ended up getting hit by a tornado during this time, actually. And also, I ended up getting laid off from my job. Like my literal career kind of came to a halt in this right in the middle of it. Like right while I was making lawyer payments and all these other things. Okay. But I cannot describe to you the emotional sense of just crazy standstill dread this period of time had on me. And I've documented this in some of my other videos. But, I basically started the process of trying to put things back together, moving one step at a time. This involves things like, getting the divorce process started, which in itself is just, everybody knows this is not a fun process. But let me just take a moment to come back here to the purpose of this channel. Okay, the Life Reset Collective was designed to help people through their own life reset. Sometimes in life, we need to reset. And this is very hard. This is often characterized by hitting rock bottom in some way and then having to climb back up out of that mud and climb up the mountain back to some kind of future that we can hope for and aim for, right? And the Life Reset Collective was designed, and that's why I started this channel, is to document my own journey of life reset and also to help others, to empower others, to encourage others. Okay, so I believe that for most people, understanding this process is impossible unless you've been in it. And if you've been through it, you realize that there are not very many people who understand what you're going through. I have been through two major life resets in my life, both due to divorce, but that's not the only reason you can go through it. You might also go through it because of an illness diagnosis. You might go through it because you lost your job and have to restart your career. You might have suffered the death of a loved one, right? You might have lost your home and then you had to figure that out. There are many reasons why life reset can happen to us. Mine happened to be due to divorce. Yours could have been for other reasons. But in any case, I welcome you. I actually do understand the journey and I document it here on the channel. So when I was going through this back in 2024, or actually 2025, every day just drug by so slowly. And it felt like I was just standing still in the middle of it. It just felt like there was no hope in sight, no end in sight. It felt like the end of the hard journey, the getting out of the pit that my life was in. It felt like it was never going to get anywhere. It felt like it was going to always be just stuck, stagnant in this place that I was in. Just this hell of being in the limbo of divorce, having to make these lawyer payments, trying to get my life sorted out because it is very disorienting. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on. My emotions were all over the place because I was getting a divorce. Even though I initiated it, there were parts of me that wished I didn't have to, wished it could have been preserved, right? Because there's still love there. But then also there was all of the drama of it. And then staying with my folks was a big challenge, even though I love them very much. We don't want to do that. We want to have our own lives. We want to do our own thing, be our own people. We don't want to stay with family when we're almost 40 years old, right? And so there's also an element, people don't understand this, but there's an element of feeling like ashamed, feeling like you have just failed, judging yourself, doubting yourself, feeling like you just have really messed up, you know, whether you have or not. And the truth is, none of us are blameless in it. Whenever, we hit upon a life reset, there might have been some elements of that we created ourselves. There's probably also many elements that you had no control over. You can't control how other people act. You cannot control when you get an illness. You can't really control sometimes if your company lays you off and you run out of work. And a lot of times it's going to feel like it just grinds by, right? The days are just going to grind by, and you might feel like you're just in the limbo of hell right now. Okay. Now, during this time, there are many different steps to this. And in fact, I've published an ebook called the Life Reset Framework. I just put this together to help people. It's my 9-step Life Reset Framework, and you can find a link to that in the description. But I'm just going to go through these steps here real quick. And I'm going to talk about how these steps translate to this process as it unfolds. Okay. So I was going through this limbo of trying to sort out work. It was like I was constantly trying to figure out where money was going to come from. I was constantly having to work just to make ends meet. I was constantly under the emotional stress of the divorce. I was constantly under the pressure of staying with my folks and but still also trying to get back to my regular life. But my ex was staying at the house, and then there was drama surrounding that. And then even after she left, the tornado hit the house and destroyed the roof. So there was a whole thing where I had to get that taken care of, and scraping to try to get money together every week, and just everything. I'm trying to be an entrepreneur, also having to work a 40-hour-a-week job, and then working for a lot less than I had been because I got laid off and had to get another job in the interim, which didn't pay as well. And then, of course, dating life is just on hold. There's no time for any of that. Friends, I disappeared from my friends' lives for this whole time, basically for a good 6 to 8 months, but it felt like such a long time. And every day you wake up and you just, it's almost like when you're in these situations, it's almost like joy is just non-existent. And you're just coping every single day. You're just crawling through every day with this heavy cloud of just misery sitting on your shoulders, right? Unless you just really love where you're at, you're probably going to feel this way. Going through a life reset, this is really common because none of us want to be here. None of us asked for a disaster. We just happened to go into one, and then you have nothing to do but to try to get through it or give up, right? Giving up is not the answer. The only way out is through, as they say. Now, there are 9 steps to this that I have documented that I believe are important. Number 1 is stabilize your space and body, right? So in all of this, these are steps that helped me to begin to move through it. So stabilize your space and body, right? Before you can rebuild anything, you need to feel safe enough to pause. This is about exiting crisis mode, regulating your nervous system, and getting your basic needs met, right? So this is just a very sustaining thing. It's like, when you first enter a life reset, your emotions are probably going to be all over the place. You're probably going to feel, like things are out of control. But in this first step, securing food, shelter, rest, and a quiet space is very important, right? So this is where we are starting to pull ourselves together and make a plan to get through it, right? Removing or reducing immediate stressors and noise, focusing on sleep, hydration, warmth, stillness, and then letting your body know the danger is past. Trying to go from panic mode into we're going to get through this mode, right? And then step 2 is reconnect with your body. Trauma and burnout often push us out of our own mind. This phase helps you to come home to yourself gently through sensation, breath, movement, and grounding. You don't need to perform healing here, just reconnect with yourself. So use your senses to stay present. Try slow walks, stretching, breath work. Nourish your body with food and care, like healthy food. Don't be, abusing your body with like substances during this time. Practice noticing what your body is asking for, right? So you know, I did a lot of thinking about my diet during this time, trying to eat healthy foods, trying to stay hydrated, and this gave me something to do every day. If I'm taking care of myself every day, this is kind of a distraction, but it's also a plan, right? And then there's grieve and get clear. Step 3, right? A lot of people don't understand that when you're going into a life reset, how many things you're grieving. You're grieving so much. I mean, a lot of people don't understand everything that loss entails. You're losing your former life. You're losing the hopes and dreams you used to have a lot of times. Not that those aren't going to come back, but that is how it feels in the moment, right? So it's important to name those losses, distinguish what was your responsibility and what wasn't. You might want to talk about it, journal about it. People are going to struggle with listening to you during this time too, because to a lot of people, your pain is going to seem like a lot and they may not want to deal with it. So it's really important that, you find an outlet of some kind. Going to therapy would be great. If you can't afford it right now, finding a friend who will listen to you, to be honest, talking to your dog, journaling, talking to yourself. These are all really like actually useful things you can do. And I know it may seem silly or something. Best case scenario is you talk to like a good friend who cares about you or someone in your family who won't judge you. But sometimes it's harder to find than people would imagine, right? And step 4 is forgive and begin again. We got to forgive ourselves, guys. We got to forgive others. This is so hard. But the further you go on the journey, if you can focus on forgiving, this is very important. You have to forgive yourself. A lot of people who go through a life reset end up just hating themselves in some specific ways. And if you feel that way, I want you to know that that is not a good strategy and it's not something you deserve. I don't care what you might have done to contribute to the life reset situation you were in. You do not deserve to hate yourself or to beat yourself up. Please find forgiveness for yourself and allow yourself to be forgiven. Okay. And this is going to lead us to step 5. Take charge of your resources. This step is about reclaiming agency. There's a time in this process when we're going to need to take stock of what we have. We're going to need to plan the journey. Okay. When you begin a life reset and you hit rock bottom, you're in like the mud at the bottom of the pit. Okay. Getting out of this is very difficult. Breaking free from the mud is very difficult. And then you have a crazy, terrible climb up out of the pit. And then even when you get out of the pit, you're going to look and you're going to see this mountain ahead of you, this mountain that represents everything standing in your way, all the obstacles standing between you and the life you actually want. And then at some point we got to start climbing that mountain. But here's the thing. We've got to try to take charge of our resources, right? You got to review your finances. You got to get clear on how you spend your time and energy. You got to start simpler routines for tracking and planning. You've got to reduce or eliminate things that drain you unnecessarily. And it's really important that you make yourself a plan that gives you hope that you can reach the top of that mountain and finally reach what I call paradise, which is where you've broken free from the past and you're moving into the future. And you're starting to see good things happening and your life is starting to go to good places. Okay. Now, in my journey right now, I am definitely at the place where I have managed to climb out of the mud of the pit, climb out of the pit. And now, fast forward from 2025, in the fall of 2025, which felt like it took 10 years to get to, the divorce finally got finished. Also, my roof finally got fixed on my house, right? So then I began the process of moving back into my house. And when I moved back in my house, it was in such a crazy state of disrepair. It had been left in a crazy, crazy mess. And I had to just, like, I had to start just putting things together. I had to buy a mattress. I had to clean my bedroom just so that I could sleep in it. Um, there were there was a mouse problem because the former tenants had just left food out everywhere, just not caring about anything. Um, it was a very difficult thing to walk back into. It was a very overwhelming thing, and you know, I just had to take charge of my resources and start cleaning and just start putting things back together. And it's still not completely back together. My house is still, I mean, I'm trying to run the business, right? And do all these things. And it's hard to find enough time to do it. But the thing is, though, is that after, after all of that stuff happened and I moved back in the house, I was still working my job, my job, and I realized I want to get back to self-employment. So I made a plan to do that. I took charge of my resources, right? And then I'm also going to talk about a couple other steps here. Step 6 of my life reset plan is enter or anchor into the sacred. Healing is more than fixing things. Sometimes it's remembering that you're part of something larger. Okay, so if you have a religious faith, it might be a great time to get back serious about that faith. If you have beliefs in, like, spirituality or traditions, that might be a really good time to get back into that, to lock in on that. I'm not particularly religious, but I did spend a lot of time praying during this time. I was given a I was given a rosary by my mother, who's Catholic, and I would pray with that. And I would also I would read prayers from several different spiritualities, and these would bring me a lot of comfort. I put together like a list of prayers that I would say every day, from different disciplines and different spiritual and religious practices. I felt like this helped to ground me a bit in kind of knowing that there can still be something special, something significant about my life, and that I can still look for hope. I can still look for happiness. I can still look for joy and peace. And these did help to bring me a little bit of peace. Not, I mean, they didn't fix the problems, but there was some peace that came with these practices. And I think they were very good, and they helped me through some of the hardest, darkest times. Sometimes when I was just feeling the most hopeless, that is what I would turn to, and it did help. Okay. Step 7 is reimagine what's possible. With your feet on the ground and your past seen clearly, now you can ask, what does a life of truth look like for me now? And you begin dreaming forward, setting aligned goals that are both inspired and realistic. So this is where I was kind of at the beginning of the year 2026. I was like working my job. I did not want to stay there forever. It was never meant to be a forever job. I wanted to get back to self-employment. So I made a plan. I saved up a little money. I decided I was going to leap back into self-employment at the beginning of March. And I did. I left my job and I got back to self-employment. So to me, this was a process where I had gone through all of that terrible, like basically 2025 was just sunk into the pit. But then with 2026 came kind of a new dawn. But looking back on that year, man, it was the longest. It was the longest 8 months of my life, uh, and I'm even lucky. There are some people who it drags on way longer than that. But what I'm telling you is that it felt like an eternity to me. Every day felt like just a grinding eternity. My whole summer and fall and winter were just destroyed by this situation that I was in. But I came through this with such a new strength and resilience. I cannot even explain to you how this helped me to get to know myself and understand myself better. And then when it came time to launch and go back to working for myself, there was a little fear in there. I was afraid of that, but I was also like, what's going to happen? I've already suffered all this. Who gives a crap if I fail at this or if it doesn't go right? how is that going to be any worse, even remotely close to what I've already been through? And so I just did it, and I'm living it now. It's still a process, right? I'm still having to grind and work and figure things out, but every day I'm paying the bills. I'm doing what I love. I have my own business, and we're slowly rebuilding life. Okay, getting slowly but surely a little bit ahead every month, and that brings us to step 8: reclaim joy and aliveness. Now, this is a part in the journey that, I'll be honest, I'm not really at this place yet. I'm just in the beginning phases of getting this back. And let me explain what this is. Healing isn't only about fixing what's broken. It's about remembering what brings you life. In this step, you intentionally invite pleasure, creativity, laughter, and play back into your life in small, consistent ways. Maybe you reconnect with music, art, nature. You schedule things that bring you joy. You express yourself creatively. You let yourself feel alive again. Okay, guys, I'm going to be really honest with you. I still struggle with all of these steps. I do schedule things that in theory would bring me joy, and maybe they do bring me some joy, but the truth is I still am racked by, I'm gonna be just super honest. I'm still racked by anxiety and depression and stuff from my failed marriage. I will say that I don't really feel guilty anymore. That part has slowly begun subsiding. I don't feel angry anymore. That part has begun subsiding. I have learned to forgive myself and to understand and look with clarity upon everything that happened. But to say that I've gotten back to having just pure joy, there are days when I feel truly joyful, like on a holistic level, but they're kind of rare. They happen maybe once every 2 weeks at this point, which is way better than it was. Sometimes maybe even one day per week, but a lot of my days are still pretty much racked by anxiety. And I think it's just a time thing. It takes time to move from chapter to chapter. And as I see my life slowly move out of that mire, that emotional mire, and I see myself slowly moving back toward happiness, I have to realize it takes time. Okay. And this brings us to our final step: build forward with rhythm. Sustainable change is built on rhythm, not intensity. In this final step, you focus on consistency, connection, and adaptive movement forward. You walk not alone, not in a rush, but with clarity, humility, and presence. And I am happy to say that I'm not alone. Like I have wonderful people in my life who I am connected to and who I connect with, and I do build forward with rhythm and momentum, and I have plans and goals, and that brings me hope, and I do have great hope for the future, but I still have fear and doubt and anxiety, but we need to get rid of those things. But it's a process, and you have to forgive yourself and be gentle with yourself as you go through that process. But with that being said, that's my update on where I am, and I want to just leave you with this piece of encouragement. If you are in a terrible chapter of your own life reset and it just feels like time is ground to a halt and it feels like you're not getting anywhere and you feel like misery is your only company, then I want you to understand that sometimes, as you probably well know, we're waiting for something, right? Sometimes we're waiting. Like when I was waiting for my divorce, I could file it, but I couldn't fast forward it. Like I had to just go through waiting for the months it took for it to work itself through the system. And I was lucky. It can take even longer than that. If you're in a process of waiting, I just want you to know that I feel for you and that I understand your pain, at least to a certain point. And I understand that it's not easy, man. And if you're in a place where you could take action, but maybe you're not because you just beat up and tired and worn out, I understand. But I would encourage you to just start taking those small steps. Start making yourself a little plan, taking charge of your resources and moving forward into the future because you deserve it. Every single person deserves another chance. I don't care what you've done. I don't care where you've been. I don't care what mistakes you've made. I don't care what has been done to you. I care in the sense that I care about humans and I care about the person watching this, but I don't care as in I want you to be held back by it or beat up by it anymore. What I want for you is for you to make a plan and have hope that you can reach that mountain and reach the top and find paradise on the other side, a new life, a new chapter. We can all do this. We all have the ability to rebuild our life and to make it something amazing. It may not be perfect. God knows mine isn't perfect, but we deserve another chance. So I do, and so do you. So I want you to go start that process, okay? Drop a comment. Tell me what you're going through, what's going on with you right now. I realize that I have been off this channel for a while, but I plan to come back and begin making videos again. So I want to connect with all of you. Thank you so much for watching this video. This is Josh from the Life Reset Collective. I will see you on the next one.